Welcome to Permission to Shine, the space where high-achieving women like you come to peel back the layers, overcome what's been holding you back, and rise into your most authentic, powerful self. I'm your host, Sherisse Inner Power Activation Leader and Intuitive Healer, and a woman who knows what it means to look like she's thriving on the outside, also while feeling disconnected on the inside. This podcast is here to remind you, you didn't come here to just perform, you came here to lead with your soul. Your obstacles, they're invitations to expand. And your power, it was never outside of you. It's been waiting within you all along. Each week we'll dive into honest conversations, healing insight and soul-led strategies to help you stop self-sabotaging, reclaim your light and lead your life, your business and your relationships from deep-rooted truth. So if you're ready to rise with grace, softness and fire, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, so I have another international guest, which I'm really excited about because me and Jennifer met in Dublin, and Dublin Irish people are just the best energy, like so heartfelt and beautiful. And I just felt like we had a lot of synergies and connection points. And I was like, I need to get Jennifer on because I know that she's full of wisdom and all of these beautiful advice and wonderful things that I know that she's here to share with you. So she's known as the Wellbeing Warrior, but she is the amazing Jennifer Davey. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a lovely thing to have you and to share your wisdom and all the beautiful things. And obviously, you're about to tell me about yourself anyway. And we were like, right, let's record. So, do you want to just tell everyone, like, who you are, what you do, and then we'll go into why after?
Sure. Okay, so I'm a women's empowerment coach, and my work is rooted in neuroscience, and spirituality. And the spirituality piece is the new piece that I've been bringing in because I needed to do my own personal work on that before I could bring that to the world. You know that there's that imposter syndrome with anything that we do that's new, and I needed to figure out what that was that I had, those gifts that I have, and put a language on it. And when I put a language on something, I understand it, and then I can talk about it with more confidence. Um, so I work with women one to one. I have a mastermind. I am writing a book, and I run warrior women transformation events. So that's how I have my impact, and I'm a global speaker. So I have really broadened my reach in terms of the women that I'm speaking to. Like I was in the States a few times last year. I'm going to cross again to Detroit next month to speak at an event, and I absolutely love it. And my mission really is to change the narrative for women. Like I have a really powerful bullshit radar. And I know that other women do too. And I'm teaching them how to find that, and how to utilize it. So they're having better experiences in life, confidence, knowing exactly who they are and what they want to do, and that they're ready for any shit that's thrown at them as a result of that. The aftermath that can sometimes happen. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. You're speaking my language. I'm like, yes, absolutely, all of the above. I'm with you on that for sure. And so I guess really the real question now is why this work? Like what happened in your life to get you to this point?
It's a really good question. For me, I was a secondary school teacher, and I taught English and history. And I actually kind of fell into that career as well. I had no intention of teaching because it seemed like too safe of a job. And then when I was doing my master's in American Lit and Film, I did a bit of substitute teaching, and I fell in love with it. I remember I had a group of second years, which is like in front of 14-year-olds, and I was in a girls' school. And I remember standing at the top of the classroom, and I was teaching them one of the soliloquies from Romeo and Juliet. And I remember one of the girls being in the classroom who would come from a tough background, and she really had no confidence in herself. And I remember asking her a question about something Romeo had said, and she gave me an answer, and I could hear by her voice that she was really shy, but she shared it. And I just said a few simple things like, her name was Sheridan. And I said, Sheridan, that is such a great point. Thank you so much for sharing. And her whole little face lit up. And I remember thinking that was nothing to me. That was just a couple of words, and it meant a lot to her. And I remember bumping into her about 10 years after that. And she still remembered that, and she recounted it back to me. And she was like, "You're a great teacher." But I remember that day going home that evening and going, "Oh my God," saying to my then boyfriend, now husband, how incredible it felt to be able to have that impact. And that's what got me into teaching. And I taught for 14 years, and I loved it. I really, really did. I used to teach predominantly English, and I absolutely loved it. And, in retrospect, everything that I was doing in the classroom was preparing me for this work now. Because English studies in Ireland, it's all about critical thinking and finding your voice and expressing your opinions on poetry and plays and films. And I was the nurturer of that. Um, and I often worked in socially disadvantaged schools, which I loved. I chose to do it that way because who better to give a voice to but the women coming from hard backgrounds? Um, and I know that now, but I didn't think of it that way at the time. I just followed my gut on things, and knew that I wasn't. I remember I had one experience teaching in a private school, and I just absolutely hated it. I couldn't get out of it quick enough. So I knew where I wanted to be. And then when I became a mom in 2014, I had my first son, Oliver. I struggled enormously. I was just numb, and I couldn't understand why, because I had a beautiful baby and a lovely husband and a new home in the country and all these things. And my self-talk just plummeted. And it turned out that it was postnatal depression that I had discovered by accident. I was in with the doctor. I was in with the nurse getting Oliver's little vaccine and his little chubby little legs. And she asked me how I was, and I just broke down in tears. So that was the beginning. That was like one of those crucial turning points, where I thought, okay, I've got to get better. And I'm a really good student, and I'm a really good patient. So if the doctor told me like to do something, I did it. So I did all the things: medication, counseling, exercise. Um, and I was better for a while. And then I wasn't again. I thought, oh, here we go. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I can't seem to get out of this. I'm doing everything right. And then I had my second son. I was probably even more profoundly depressed after Freddie. I didn't realize it because I was in the thick of it, like with a breastfeeding baby and a toddler. But my husband said to me afterwards, like when we think back on it, he was like, "You were definitely struggling more, but I still got up and I did all the things." And you wouldn't think for a second to look at me that I actually was struggling, you know what I mean? But I absolutely was. And then the next turning point was when I went back to school in 2018 after Freddie. And I literally walked in the school gate, and I just felt just all over my body and my mind just saying, "You do not feel the same way about this job as you once did." And they were the exact words. "You do not feel the same way about this job as you once did." And I spent the whole day in school then in a bit of a bubble going, what was that? Where did that come from? That didn't even sound like me. Um, and that moment then something changed. Something huge changed. I didn't know what it was going to become, but I knew in my bones that I couldn't keep teaching. But I had no plan, like I didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't a qualified coach. I didn't even know what a life coach was. But I remember sitting down that night when the kids were gone to bed over a cup and chatting to Wayne, going, if I could just like put all together everything I've learned in the last 4 years, um, and help women, like, wouldn't that be amazing? you know, when you're like thinking out loud kind of. And then alongside of that, like I had spent kind of the last year on Instagram. I wasn't on Instagram before. My friend said to me, you know, go join Instagram when you're on maternity leave so we can keep in touch and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I was like, okay, like whatever, Instagram's so lame. Oh my God, like get over yourself, right? But I joined it anyway. And I started sharing about my mental health stuff. And you see, like I'm a natural teacher. I will always be a teacher. Because like if I find something that works, like I want to tell someone, we have to try this. This is great. Like so that's what I was doing. And I was getting a real kick off it. And I was also realizing that I was good at it. You know, I was good at explaining things and I was good at motivating people. And people seemed to warm towards me. And I was helping people. And I didn't realize I could. And it was so easy to help people. Like it was just like second nature. So between that and the feelings around teaching, I kind of thought, okay, something is going to change. And I think when you have those moments where you're thinking like, okay, what there's something else here, or what's next, or I feel like I'm done with this particular thing, whatever it might be. Stuff just kind of comes into your vortex, doesn't it? Like opportunities. You start to see events or you start to meet people from your past. You go, God, that's so strange. So it was a series of couple of those different things, like an event, a person I bumped into, and a conversation. And then that led me down a bit of a rabbit hole of research and life coaching. And I found the neuroscience course and I thought that's really juicy. Like I can sink my teeth into that. It's not too woo-woo. It's it's not gonna be hard to accept or believe this, yeah, do this, right? And then then the pandemic happened, so I was teaching at home and like started doing the training. So it was 10 months of in 2020 of training, and it was absolutely brilliant. I learned so much about myself, and I was just so excited to bring all of that learning into my clients, into the women that I knew I was going to work with. Um, and it was very important for me to learn how to be a coach. I just felt like I needed that accreditation, that course, that kind of time frame, you know. And as soon as I qualified, I started coaching professionally. And that was the end of 2020, registered the business. I was still teaching, but I knew I couldn't do both. So I took a career break and then just went all in with it. And then I resigned from teaching after a year because I was like, there's no point holding on to this job. Like I'm done. Leave somebody else have it. And I've gone from strength to strength, build the business up, built out my programs, started doing events in year 2 of business. And now I speak, I have my mastermind, I have my one-to-one, I have a podcast, and I'm writing a book. So it's just grown and it's incredible. Incredible. And I think what I'm really excited about is my spiritual gifts. Like I very, very much a visionary. I can meet somebody and within minutes I can cut through the bullshit, see exactly what their problem is, and I'm not scared to say that to them. Like I won't be harsh. There's always empathy and kindness and crack when I'm talking to someone, but I get straight to it. And it's one of the gifts, and it's really important work. We have a lot of work to do as women. Um, but I think our generation, like I'm a little bit older than you, I'm 42, but I think our generation of women are really, we're mega powerful. I feel like we're one of the most powerful generations of women in the last couple of 100 years. And we're really getting stuff done, and we're getting a lot more um aware of the power of our voice. And those that have it are using it, and those that don't have it yet want it, and they're working towards it. And I just think it's spectacular. You know, I think there's so much going to happen in the next few years in the world with women that we're going to be like, man, we're so proud of ourselves. This is great, you know, for the collective and for our daughters and their daughters.
Yeah, 100%. No, thank you for sharing all of that. And it's so wonderful to hear your story because I feel like there's some similarities, isn't there, within our own like journey to get to this point, which I think is so beautiful, because I believe work is something that we're called to do. And I think that, you know, from your
Mm.
story and also mine, it was something that I didn't just one day, like you didn't just one day go, oh, do you know what? I'll be a coach. That'd be great. You know, like it was something that came as a byproduct of our lived experiences. And, you know, that journey that you spoke about with the teacher, I feel like the teacher and the student, like that moment, I feel like I've had
Mm.
moments like that myself. And just remembering, you know, when the teacher was there in my life and they said to me something, and just those little points, and then bumping into those girls that I spoke to years ago and them saying to me, like, even on my Instagram now, I said to them when they were younger, I was like, you can't follow me on Instagram, but when you leave, you can follow me then. And then just something I'll share, and then they'll message me like, oh, I remember you said that to me all these years ago. And it's just those little glimmers, isn't it, of
Oh.
like value that we get to give.
Mm.
And like you said, it's just a small thing that you've said to someone, just being your human self, and that being the just the gold dust for someone is such a wonderful thing. And I remember as you're talking about
Mm.
spirituality as well, I remember when I hugged you and I said to you after, I was like, oh, I can feel like an elder. There's like a lady here with like big long braids, is what I could see, two long braids. And she feels like the elder of a village. And then you said to me, oh, there's lots of Native American connections to your ancestry, and like what you connect to with your spirit guides and stuff. And I was like, that's so interesting, because yeah, these kind of things come through and come forward for me. And I feel like I'm probably more woo naturally than I was science based. And I feel like I've then found the science to woo woo connection as it progressed. But I definitely feel like I kind of
Mm.
led down the path with spirituality first, and then it started to make sense. Like I talk a lot
Mm.
about quantum,
Mm.
and like, obviously that's the like manifestation piece and all of that. And I also say about how like our past and our present are interconnected in the moment. So like I like to think of us as like an infinity sign, and we're in the middle. So we're connected to the past and the present, and
Mm.
depending on how we move. And I feel like that helps with the science, because then people that aren't naturally spiritual, when I explain it in that way, it makes more sense. And I believe they're one and the same, you know, spirituality and science. I think that there's such a big intersect there, which is
Mm.
yeah, really great. And everything you said about our generation being the strong women, I completely agree with you. And I feel like the generation before us, I think they were like the last round of women that were going to suppress themselves. I feel like that they were really, and I feel like they indoctrinated into us, then that next generation, that you can be what you want to be, or the opposite, and do
Mm.
what we did, and actually we just rebelled against it and was like, no, we're going to do it
Mm.
this way. So either way,
Mm.
we've been that awakening for sure. And I think, yeah, it's really
Mm.
powerful. And Saturn moving into Aries is and also Neptune, that there's some real big planetary shifts that are happening over the last few kind of weeks, and that's going to really take spirituality and wellness and well-being into the physical body. So it's not going to be
Mm.
something that we talk about behind closed doors. It's going to be very much that people are, you know, wanting to invest in their well-being, wanting to do
Mm.
something to support their mental health that isn't just woo-woo or therapy, but it's different modalities. So I
Mm.
completely agree with you. I think we're really in that zone now where the work that we do is so needed and powerful. And I believe,
Mm.
like you said, this is from our truth, you know, like our purpose and all of those things. And I feel like that's the gold dust bit, isn't it? That people
Mm.
feel
Mm.
that when they speak to us, which is amazing. But
I
in your story,
remember, I remember hearing a couple of months ago. I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I didn't hear it. I read it somewhere, but it was like in the next 5 years, everyone's going to have their own holistic practitioner, like they have their GP. And I thought that is absolutely fascinating. But even recently, I suffer from migraines, and have done for a long time. And my go-to was not to call my GP, but to actually call my spiritual advisor and do a session. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot more people are going down that route because I don't know why it is, but it just seems to be a wave of. I think actually it's because, and this is the great stuff about social media, is the conversations there now are out in the ether. And people of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, walks of life are talking about spirituality. So if you want to find someone who talks about it that you can buy into and you can believe, you'll find them. Do you know what I mean? It's not like just for a certain type of person anymore. And I think that helps spread the conversation and bring it out into the mainstream. Now, that absolutely has its problems as well. And I could do another talk on that around misusing language. And I think that's a huge thing. But I think as women, it's hard to ignore the signs, you know?
Absolutely.
It's hard to ignore. And by signs, I don't mean white feathers. I mean, you know, that pull towards something or someone. So somebody might say, oh, I can feel that energetic pull. And somebody else might say, my mind keeps going back to that thing. And there's this intellectual curiosity kind of coming up as a result. And the kind of the most logical, head-centered women can't ignore that anymore. And they're going, why does this keep coming back to me? You know, because I think as humans, we're naturally curious anyway. So maybe it's that the language is there, the education is there. And there's so many different ways, isn't there, of being spiritual? Like there's so many different practitioners that there is something for everyone. You know, so someone might like reflexology, but they might love craniosacral therapy, or somebody might like energy healing, but they love tarot cards, or you know what I mean? So there is there's loads of opportunities for
It's
that.
not linear. It's so open, isn't it? And
Yeah.
fluid. I think that is the real feminine energy as well that I feel like is awakened, I think, for a lot of people. Because even some of the men that I speak to now are, connecting in with these practices because they can too. It's not just exclusive to either or. And it's the fact that we have all the energies in our body all the time. But I agree with you with the signs, and I see it for women as well. Because obviously a lot of my work is somatic, and they can feel like something in their gut, like a real knot in their stomach, and I'm like, that is trauma that's stored in your body. And then when I explain it, they're like, gosh, that makes so much sense. But if they're just trying to, Google or go to their GP and say, I've had IBS now for 10 years, I don't know how to get rid of it. No one should have IBS for 10 years. That's emotion stored in the body. And I think that in itself is like a massive wake up for a lot of women as well. Like you said, everyone's looking for a different way of doing things. I personally don't like to take paracetamols or anything like that. So I'll try and, find the holistic version of that. So if it's like I need to have a peppermint tea instead, I'll do that, like whatever it is I can do to support myself holistically. But equally, I have no official like physical illnesses. If I did, it would be a very different situation. So I just want to caveat that, because if you are, have an illness, I don't want you to ignore, your medical advice. But equally, I believe there is lots of different modalities for all of that, like we were saying. But obviously the podcast is called Permission to Shine. So I'd love to know in your story where you feel like, and there might be more than one, like where was the moments for your life where you feel like you gave yourself that permission to fully shine?
I think it started, I mean, it happened in 2020. It started in 2020 when I decided to step away from teaching and coach, because I had no idea how I was going to do it. I had no doubt I was going to be successful, and I had no doubt that it was what I was supposed to do. But I was walking away from a permanent job, teaching was a well-paying permanent job. So I went all in on the coaching from a very, very strong inner knowing that this is what I meant to do. But as you might notice, I said the word it happened in 2020, not shine, because I think the shining part truly happened about 18 months ago. And that's when I started to really lean into my spirituality. I've always been a very spiritual person. I've always made decisions with my intuition. Like, I'm not a religious person. I don't like the Catholic Church. I didn't christen my boys or any of that carry on. But I've always felt a spirituality. But about 18 months ago, I really leaned into it. So I did a course around manifestation and the quantum physics and the law of entanglement and all of that stuff. And I was fascinated by it because I always believed in energy. And even though, as a kind of Catholic but not practicing, I never believed in heaven, right? But I also kind of used to say, but we're all energy, so we've got to go somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never accepted that, when the physical body dies, it goes in the ground and that's it forever. That just didn't make sense to me on a soul level. I thought that just can't be, because we are all energy. So energy was always something that I really believed in. And even when I was a little girl, like on the age of 10, I could just read a room. I just knew when people were feeling certain ways. And even though that was definitely silenced and I was told, oh, you're overthinking it, etc., I now know as a grown woman, I wasn't overthinking it. I had such a little power in me as a little girl. But the shining bit in the last 18 months, it's actually really paying attention to those signs and those whispers. Because, and I'm going back a little bit here, but when my mother-in-law passed away 5 years ago, um, it was such a loss. Like, she was my best friend. And sorry, my dogs are going to start barking. I think now, 1 second, I'm going to grab him. Hi, come here. Oh, no, he's okay. And about 3 weeks after she passed away, I had an experience in my kitchen, and I could just feel her completely with me and her arms wrapped around me. And I stood still for about 15 minutes because I didn't want the moment to end. And it was in that moment that I thought to myself, Jennifer, I think you have some real abilities here. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I started to kind of explore them. And then I worked with a spiritual mentor for about 10 months. And we're just taking a little pause. I started to realize that it's not just that I had a very strong intuition, but actually I had some real deep spiritual gifts. And I started to notice more and more in my coaching sessions, these questions were just being dropped into my head that I had to ask. And I would say to my clients, I'm so sorry for interrupting you mid-sentence, but I have to ask this right now. And then I was starting to meet people at events, new women, and they would be talking to me about what they would love. And I had one experience, and I said to my client, you're going to be a speaker. I can see it. I can see it on stage, and I can see what you're wearing. And she was like, oh my God, that's actually what I would love, but I haven't said it out loud. So I started to hear these questions, see these visions, and realize, oh my goodness, there's a whole cohort of abilities here that I have. And it was kind of scary. I felt like total imposter. I was like, oh, I'm only making this up. Oh, this is, it took time, like. But when I discovered through my spiritual mentor how real they were and the purpose that the purpose they had and the growth that they could bring for my women, I really let them shine. And I'm only starting to really talk about it now. Like, even when you saw me on stage in January, I don't think I talked about that on stage. And I remember coming off going, and I think I might have said this to you afterwards, but I remember saying, like, I want to start bringing this more into my work.
Yeah, for sure. I completely understand as well. It's quite alien, like you said, like when you hear because that's really completely how I do my work with my clients. It's all quite intuitive and just I'm guided. And whenever I'm listening, I always get someone to tell me their full story first, and then the questions just start to flow through me. And even down to when I'm with a client, I can see into their visualizations. So anytime someone explains something to me, I just see the image. So whatever it is that you told me, like your memories that you've been talking through, I can see it through my third eye space. And then that's how I know what questions to ask or how to move forward with people. And I didn't realize that that was a spiritual gift. And it was only in 2024. So I started my business officially in 2023. And then in 2024, I was speaking at another event, and one of my friends, she's a psychic business mentor, and I was telling her about how I work because she was like, "How do you work then?" And I was explaining. She went, "So you're channeling?" I was like, "What?" She was like, "You're channeling. That this is all spiritual stuff." And I was like, "Is it?" She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You're so strong. Like your channel's really strong." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "I didn't know that that was what that was." So until that whole year and a half, I was unaware that that's what I was doing. So it's so profound and beautiful, but also, like you said, very strange. And I think that when we give ourselves the permission to own that, I think that's really the medicine, isn't it? Like, I believe that, everything that we've experienced in our lives up until this point has become the medicine. And like you said yourself, like being a natural teacher, I think that that goes so far because, your ability to understand people, but you're also your ability to process information and then translate it. I mean, do you know your human design? Because I feel like you've definitely got a 5 in your profile or something, or a 1, because I'm a 5-1, and I feel like you must be.
Yeah. So I remember doing my human design at the start of this 18-month period that I spoke about a minute ago. And I'm either a generator or a manifesting generator. I can't remember which one. I can't remember. I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, I want to know the numbers because I feel like I think one of them is the teacher. And like, so my number's 5-1 means that I'm a challenge solver. But I feel like you have a similar profile because
Mm.
the way you explain that how you work and like how you've moved through things, like a part of my thing is that I have to learn everything first and then I teach it. So I don't just
Okay.
pick up a book and read it and go, right, so we're going to do this. It's like, no, I have to absorb it and really feel it in my body to then teach something. And like my
Yeah.
friend said to me who does human design, she was like, that means that you're never going to give someone false information because you've got to fully digest it before you deliver it, and people trust you more because they feel that rather than it being impulsive. And I feel that with you. I
Mm.
feel like your wisdom is very like I said, there's like an ancient feeling there of like your wisdom, because even obviously seeing that
Mm.
ancestor in that moment
Mm.
with you, I'm like, yeah, there's so much wisdom here. And it's so powerful, isn't it? I think that when we are unafraid to share this part of us, one,
Mm.
it gives other people the permission to do the same thing. But I feel like it's this collective, like we said, this awakening, this knowing as women, we can feel it. It's like underneath us, isn't it? And
Mm.
I felt that in Ireland really strongly as well. Like I know the Gaelic roots have so much connection to the earth and all of these things. It's just, yeah, so powerful. And this women awakening era is so here. And I think, yeah, we're really here to make massive impact, which is really beautiful. But you have mentioned obviously your offers that you kind of do anyway, but I'd love for you to kind of share a bit more. So if anyone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to know more about Jennifer, how can people work with you?
Well, I think the best thing to do is if someone just reaches out to me, just sends me maybe a DM or an email, Jennifer at wellbeingwarrior.ie, and we can have a conversation. Because there's a couple of different routes. There's the one-to-one work, of course. So there's the Solidify program, which is like a 3-month program. And then there's the 12-month program, which is Certainty. And there's the 6-month as well. But there's also the mastermind. So I think what I like to do is I like to kind of get a sense as to where people are at, and then I'll feel a recommendation and I will send them that information. Because the last thing I want to do ever is to overload people, because if people are coming to me, they're already feeling kind of overloaded or overwhelmed. And by sending them all the information, it's too much. Um, so yeah, that's what I say. Send me a DM or an email, and we'll take it from there. Because I think if somebody is listening and they feel that pull towards my voice, and they feel like they want to know more, that's enough for now. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to have it all figured out. Like, let me help you with that. I would love that opportunity as well, for sure.
That's so lovely. And it's so true, isn't it? Like you said, like for women listening, I think it's like honoring that inner knowing, like if you feel the pull, then lean in, because you never know what will come of it, right? I think your signs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trust that and just send that first little hi, how are you? And I'll take over from there. I'll hold you in that space.
A million percent. And we'll put all your links in the notes so then people can find it straight away, so they can just click.
Yeah.
Easy. And then I always like to end the episode with a soul to soul message. So that could be whatever's on your heart right now that you want to share, or maybe for the woman listening that is in a position where she needs someone like you. What does your heart want to share for her?
Keep going. That came to me very quickly. Keep going. And that keep going is not keep going with the frustration. It's keep going with that curiosity. If you're feeling a pull to something and you're finding yourself Googling something and you don't know why, keep going with it. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. I think curiosity is one of our most underrated things that we have as people. And I think the more, like you said, we lean into that, the answers will appear.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
no,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me. And I feel like there's so much wisdom in what you share. And I know that people will, I love the Irish accent anyway, so I could just listen to you speak forever.
Thank you.
Bedtime stories, and I'll be like, yeah, lovely.
I should be on CBeebies. That's 6 o'clock.
That's
CBeebies, I remember that. You were in the little bit, and then you'd have in the night garden after the little cartoon.
Lovely. We'll get you to do that too. Maybe that's what you should be doing for your clients, bedtime stories. I feel like I'll sign up for that. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And as I said, all of your details will be in the notes so everyone can find you there.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. I'm so chill now. I can just feel your energy over the last 30 minutes or so that we've spoken. And also one thing I've noticed in myself is a lot of what I've said today has felt very, very guided. Like, I know the people listening can't see me, but I'm actually completely sitting back on my chair here. It's probably been, I've done lots of podcasts, but this is the one where I felt most connected with spirit and just guidance. I think there will be people listening that will feel those vibrations in my voice. And I hope that helps them, hope that helps them.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please do like, follow and share with a woman that you know needs to hear these words today. The more women that get to listen, the more impact and change and transformation I get to make into this world, and the light in you shines on others. So sharing that forward is absolutely the mission of this. This is how we all give and get and receive the permission to fully shine. I also have some really incredible things happening this year. I'm hosting the second She Rises event in April. So if you want to find out more about that, click the link in the description. And I'm now newly launching my first ever group program that is called Unforgettable. And it's taking you from performing visibility to embodied authority. So whether that's hosting your own podcast or being on stage or being the leader of your field, and you're ready to fully embody this version of you that has this dream and ambition, that the limiting beliefs, the childhood experiences, the generational trauma that has stopped you and prevented you from fully stepping into who you came here to be. This is the space where we get to write a new story, a new chapter in your life. And I'm so excited to hold that space for you. And as always, if you're looking for one-to-one guidance and support, drop me a message, because there's always spaces available for you. I send you so much love.